Down Records presents a Hip Hop Christmas. You'll get such classics as These Nuts Roasted on an Open Fire, A Sleigh Ride in My 64, Annie Up Bitch, It's Christmas, and many more.
buy that
You can't
shit,
get this
son.
2 CD set.
Magnavolt, the final word in auto security. No embarrassing alarm noise, no need to trouble the police. And it won't even run down your battery.
Magnavolt. Lethal response.
What's up? What's up? Trusty 8 podcast. This will be the Happy Holidays stream. Happy holidays, everybody. Whatever holidays you celebrate, for whatever reasons you celebrate them. Might open the room up later. Oh, Atheist Mo, got you at work. Totally understandable, but thank you for listening in. I sent a few links out. I might just open the room in public here, but I want to see who shows up. I've only got a limited amount of space for people who can join, so I want to make sure that friends of the podcast get in first. We got a couple hours here. I spent a couple hours last night in some other streams. I was over at Godless Sewing's channel for a little bit, and I spent some time talking to Khalil at EA Dawa. Yeah, I was kind of high as fuck when I went in that room, Mo. So I was trying to be the nice atheist and ask the friendly Muslims some questions about their beliefs and not ask, the low-hanging fruit, why do women have to cover themselves and why do apostates have to be beheaded and stuff like that. I didn't ask those questions. Yes, Mo, I'll be very careful who I let in. And this will be the last stream before New Year's. And I want to do a New Year's stream and not get my channel deleted this time, hopefully, So yeah, I'm a little more cautious as to who I let in and stuff like that for sure. I learned my lessons well. So I had a connection issue trying to go into Khalil's stream the first time I was on my phone, and I had to come back and get in on my tablet. To get a solid connection with him, and my connection now is the weather's not great, and I am kind of like in a detached building from the router here, so it's hit or miss sometimes. I was going to attempt to do this on Discord, but when I tested it earlier, there were a bunch of different problems, and I had to try to MacGyver it, like to use my phone and my computer simultaneously, and it just didn't work. But yeah, I'll listen into a little bit of this conversation. I'm kind of slow to speak, so I'll probably speed it up here just a tad so we can talk about the conversation I had with Khalil and some other folks last night. So it didn't get heated or anything. We kept it pretty neutral while I was there. I know Richard Madsen joined and was there for a time after I left. And I was watching it, and then I hit some other streams. But all right, we'll check out this portion of the conversation. Thanks for coming, Mo. Yeah, if you want to come back in later, I don't know how long you're going to be working, but be around for a couple hours. I'll drop you a link. So this is where we finally get reestablished, and I actually enter the conversation. So there's going to be a little bit of a lag in the audio, apparently on my end. And Richard tells me later that I'm cracking up a bit. So please, anybody, if my microphone sounds like shit, tell me so I can try to adjust it on my stream or any other. Like I want to be, audible. Yeah.
Hello?
Hello, Khalil and Friendly Muslim.
How we doing?
How are you?
Oh, I'm doing well, thank you. Pretty good night.
What would you like to talk about?
Yeah, first time calling in. I've listened to you guys a couple times. All right. Well, I'm an atheist, and so I just kind of your guys' perspective. As far as Islam versus Christianity, why do you think Islam maybe would be more convincing than Christianity, or why did it convince you?
Yeah, I would just simply say that Islam has much more of a logical basis of belief rather than a faith-based basis for belief. I believe a lot of times when it comes to questioning Christians, they have to say, well, that's just what we believe. And me as a pastor at one point in my life, when I started to bring these questions and realize that I needed to justify why I believe what I do, I wasn't able to, and that was greatly unconvincing. And that's why I myself was an atheist for a long while.
What's up, Godless Sewing? Yeah, you got the link. You're of course welcome to join. We'll see how the connection goes here. I was trying to freaking make sure everything was copacetic earlier, and yeah, good to see you. I know. I heard you last night. You're real scratchy. I get that. But feel free to chime in the chat. So this may be a bit frustrating because I'm not going to challenge these guys too hard, but I am going to start trying to nudge my way gently into some philosophical questioning here and stuff. So pretty interesting conversation. I think I haven't really interacted too much with Muslims. I know Khalil kind of has an interesting background. I've heard a little bit of his conversation with like the Raging Atheist and on a couple other places on YouTube. And I know he was a Christian and then he became an atheist and now is a Muslim. So I find that, kind of fascinating, and we'll get into it a bit, but he's not, later on, he kind of exits the stream and lets the Christians have at me too. So, but I tried to just play neutral and just ask a lot of epistemological questions rather than really challenging hardcore on the belief structure there. And I was trying to angle to where I'm learning about Islam rather than just challenging it right off the bat, because I have a very surface level knowledge of the doctrine. So
and I stayed in that position until something else, in fact, did convince me and met the criteria for what I would say would be reasonable to convince me that a God exists. And if any religion, any specific religion, that religion would have to meet a certain criteria also. So I would say Islam versus Christianity, there's not even a challenge there. Christianity has more logical problems than anything. Whenever you hear a Christian talking about Islam, it's like moral issues or just emotional issues. You don't hear about the logical problem of Tawheed, like we talk about the logical problem of the Trinity. They don't.
I'm not sure he ever explains. I think it's Tawheed to me. He just mentioned it right there, but and I didn't bring up the moral issues of things that I do know. Again, on the surface level of women having to be covered or apostates being executed and things like that, right? I'm not going to bring that up. And I know that's frustrating. I didn't want to get into the full debate, but I did spend over an hour in this room. And then it just kind of got muddled a lot by more Christian spiritualism and mysticism that gets kind of smuggled in here. But in my opinion, not that, it's an open room and all that good stuff. So, but I think they all kind of wanted to play, whack the atheist a little bit. And I wasn't engaging them in debate, so they ended up kind of having to attack each other. It's kind of funny.
They don't have those types of arguments against us. So, I mean, I would say the atheists attempt to provide more logical arguments against Islam, or I would just probably say a God in general than anything. But yeah, that's why.
Okay, gotcha. I don't really honestly know a lot about Islam aside from the common stereotypes you hear. So I don't know too much about the specific doctrines and how they differ. So are there any really specific doctrines you might point to where that's this more logic based kind of?
Sure. Yeah. So are you familiar with the Christian position on the original sin?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So I find it highly problematic for these two people to have been created by God and to exist. And because they decided using their free will to screw up and eat the fruit, that all of their descendants below them are screwed also. Would you find that to be problematic on a logical level?
Absolutely.
Okay. So in Islam, we do not have that concept whatsoever. We do believe in Adam and Eve. We do believe in them, God saying, don't eat of the fruit. We have the belief that they, in fact, did eat of the fruit. Let me add another thing in. Christianity is very misogynistic because if you go to 2 Timothy in there, it says that it was not Adam's fault. It was Eve's fault for eating the fruit.
See, and I'm glad I didn't bring that up. I was going to bring that up, but Khalil brought it up himself, that there's that secondary doctrine where it's now the woman's fault. So it's not just a generational sin, it's caused by one party solely, where, so the misogyny, the sexism is smuggled in there, right? But Khalil brings it up.
She was the sinner and fooled Adam into fooled Adam, and my wife loves walking into the room when I'm talking about this, and fooled Adam into eating the fruit. So it was all the woman's fault. No, it was both of their faults. They both screwed up. They both knew not to do it, and they did it anyways. But the whole reason of that happening was only so they could repent, and then God could show them how forgiving He is. So now they have firsthand experience of being forgiven for something that they did that they were told not to. And now when they have their children, they can teach their children about this God that they believe in, this God that they have that is forgiving. Yes, you're not perfect. You can do things wrong and you will be forgiven of it. That's the whole idea of the eating the fruit in the Garden of Eden within Islam. Would you agree that that makes more logical sense rather than the Christian position?
I do. I still struggle with why the concept of like the test or the temptation exists. So now I'm going to go back to a why question. Why would God do that? I'm going to try to redirect a little bit because I don't want to focus too much on the doctrine that, well, yeah, you're presenting it in a different way, but Adam and Eve and all of their lineage are still punished, right, for something that God allowed or instituted to happen that, may have happened otherwise. But I mean,
sure. Okay. So within Islam, we have this belief, and I'm diving way further than I normally do with an atheist, right? Normally with an atheist, I won't even talk about Islam until we get you to believe that there's something necessary. You said you've listened to me a couple times and listened to this channel. I will go into arguments for a necessary being, what those properties of the necessary being is, blah, blah, blah. But I want to kind of give you have genuine questions. You seem genuine. I want to give you the answers that we have. And then, these may not seem reasonable to you right now, but then if we go back and have the discussion about the necessary being, and then you finally come to that point where you're like, okay, it's reasonable that there's this thing that exists that is the causal principle, then you can start to tie these things together and it starts to make a lot more sense and is more convincing now that you're at a different level epistemologically. But
well, yeah, certainly that's the problem. I didn't want to go straight into debate and all that, but getting back to that point, why to believe in the monotheistic deity and all. Got on playback now, listening back, my mic sounds so much louder than theirs. So I actually turned myself down on this stream a little bit. I'm like, oh shit, is my mic that loud? But it's clear, at least at this point, I think. That's good. I just wanted to point out, Khalil mentioned his wife a couple times in the stream, but I if I was going to be very poignant, I would ask, whether or not his wife wears a face covering in public. Speaking of like a westernized version of Islam, because I think there are westernized interpretations of Islam where the face covering is not necessary, and how does all that work? But we didn't get too deep. Like I said, I didn't ask questions about that. Not yet. This is our first time interacting, so I'm not going to go there and all of this, type of stuff. So, but I wanted to kind of get into what the tenets were and stuff.
Sure. Yeah. No, you're good. I think there might be like a 2 to 3 second lag between us. So I apologize if I sound like I'm interrupting you. But yeah, so in Islam, we have this idea that we were created as souls, right? We were all created from one soul, and we existed in what's called the realm of souls. And God came to us and said, would you like to take this test? And if you pass the test and you have earned your way, you could earn your way to a higher paradise than you're at right now. where we are at in the realm of souls, there's no evil, there's no good, there's no nothing going on. You're chilling. You're in existence. You're fine. You're not doing anything, but there's no good, there's no bad. It's just a neutral zone. And then
So it does sound, listening back, like this is an evasion of my question. I know now he's kind of changing the topic, because I asked why introduce sin or temptation in the first place. But now he's talking about this neutral realm of spirituality that kind of seems a bit unrelated to what I asked. But
if you want to, you can reach a higher level of paradise than where you're at right now. And if you choose to take the test, then you will know that there will be trials and tribulations. There will be this is an obstacle course. This is things are going to happen good in your life. Things are going to happen bad in your life. And what we're going to do, what basically we're going to do, is enter this world not having any knowledge except the basis, like properly basic beliefs. There's something that we call the fitra. So it's
if we make it far enough, I think I'm going to reframe this question as to why is suffering necessary, which I think is pretty much synonymous to why is sin necessary. So if there's no sin, there's no suffering in any type of, whether you're talking about Christianity or Islam, I think. Right. But this question is not really ever going to be directly answered, except it's all just a test. It's an arbitrary test that the deity creates, no matter what your faith.
The innate disposition towards the truth, or like an internal compass that points you towards truth. I believe the fitra is part of why I think everybody with a rational mind, with a clear fitra, can say, yes, killing babies for fun is objectively wrong all the time. It doesn't matter who you are, where you are, what time you're in. It's wrong to kill babies for fun. Absolutely. I think everyone would agree with that. Now, I think that's part of our innate disposition to be disgusted by that type of notion of killing babies for fun. There are the classical laws of logic. I believe that's part of the fitra. I believe that our epistemology is part of this fitra. So there's a lot of things that tie into this. So that's the information that we're given. And then we grow up and we live life, and we can be given the truth of Islam by somebody. Like, for example, I am giving you what we believe right now. So this is the point in your life to where you said before you didn't know about Islam, and now we have met and I'm giving you what I believe, right? So now what you do with this is totally up to you. I'm not saying that you have to choose to be convinced, because that's not how it works. Let's be honest. You don't choose what you're convinced of. You choose to listen to the information like you are, and then whether it convinces you or not is completely outside of your own volition. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, well, I think so. One would have to have a true spiritual epiphany in order to, I guess, to believe, in any true sense. Like
Smoke break. Choo-choo-choo. What's up? Smoking some Northern Cali weed. So I'm gonna try and play nice guy through this whole fucking stream, man. Cause I've been getting stoned. No, it was a fun conversation. Khalil was like pretty easy to talk to as far as that. I was like not trying to do the debate me bro thing. Just oh shit, did my connection just get fucked? Really just trying to like learn a bit about Islam before I even really try to debate the subject too much. Like, I've heard the atheist arguments, and I'm gonna mention that up here. It's like, I know the standards are, I've been listening to like Sam Harris for a long time, but at the same time, I wanted to hear, and honestly try to listen to Khalil's positive argument for his faith, right? Doing more epistemology, which is something like I'm into. So, fucking hey, what's up, Ox? Good to see you. So, I saw the opportunity. I jumped in. We're having this conversation. Hopefully my connection's working out here. Open up the room in a little bit. Still got a couple people. Godless Sewing might jump in with the scratchy throat. I had to go to work. I sent out a couple other invites, but man, see, I've been worried about this. My StreamYard connection out here is still kind of spotty sometimes. I had a good conversation with Richard the other night. Please, anybody educate me as to how the fuck I restream Discord on here, because I've been trying to MacGyver this shit, and there's just something with the free version of StreamYard. it won't restream Discord, or I need a third party or something. I haven't figured that out yet. I've seen other people do it successfully, because I can get like really good Discord streams on my phone. I just need to be able to restream them onto YouTube. Yeah, I feel like he has a very personalized version of Islam that isn't representative of most of the thought. But again, I just don't have enough exposure. I've spoken, or I've heard from more former Muslims than like current Muslim peoples. Like, and yeah, so Khalil still seems like he's on a spiritual journey or whatever, and he's able to reframe things to suit his biases, which we all do that, right? So get too much shit for that. All right, we'll get back into the video. This is not like all we have to talk about. I just figured it'd be worth a refresher, since I just did this last night and I had some thoughts about it. But if anybody else comes in, we could talk about literally anything else. I got a couple hours to go here. Once again, happy holidays if you celebrate holidays or whatever, or just this will be the last one until New Year's, and then we'll be starting off fresh in the new year. The brand new Trusty 8 podcast. All right, get back into the video.
To go back to what you were saying, like, why believe in the singular type of monotheistic deity as opposed to maybe multiple deities?
Okay. So if we have something that's called a necessary being, right? That necessary being has all metaphysically possible attributes that do not contradict its own nature. That's what it means to be necessary. If it lacked any metaphysically possible attribute, it couldn't be a necessary being, because it would lack. That means in another possible world, it could be different, which means that it would be contingent. So let's say we have two necessary beings. The question is, how could we even say these things are two things if they're identical with each other? If both of them have all the exact same attributes, they're not spatially located anywhere. How could you say that these two necessary beings are not just one necessary being?
Right. Well, okay, but that's like the question. Okay, it's not like A plus B equals C, right? But rather, in this instance, 1 plus 2 equals 3. Right. In which case, you would actually have 3 necessary beings, which is a totally other question. 1 plus 1 plus 1. But 1 plus 1 equals 2. Okay, that's probably more identical to what we're really talking about. And in a necessary first cause, you'd have to have 2 particular causes interacting with one another, which is kind of where I was trying to go with that. But I think, I didn't get there. Okay.
To make them distinct from each other, we would have to show what the distinctions are, as in this one has a property that this one doesn't have. But if that's the case, then this one over here is lacking a property that it could have. Therefore, this thing's no longer necessary. So now we have the one necessary being. And that's the whole idea around it.
Well, to me, it seems in nature what we see, at least as far as our kind goes, mammals and such, you need the 2 necessary beings in order to create the contingent, right? You need the mother and the father. You can't just have the one.
In humanity, sure, yeah.
Right. And now biology, broadly speaking, may work a little differently. You can have one thing that splits into 2.
Correct.
And then you'd, I guess, have the concept, like, so in Islam, do you believe that all people are a part of the creator God?
Absolutely not. God is not made of parts. If God was made of parts, then that would make him contingent. We need to maintain the necessity of whatever this necessary existence is.
I think I asked that question badly, but Khalil's still kind of answering it fairly well, because there's people that say that like a deistic kind of universe, or that worldview, or that we're all one with the creator type of thing. So, and apparently in Khalil's view, it's not. So that's pretty just clear answer, I think.
That we're talking about. If he's made of parts, if he could be in a different organization, if he could exist a different way, if he's arbitrarily limited in any way, all of these things would negate him from the realm of being necessary. And then we would have to figure out what the explanation on why this thing exists the way that it does, and really go out and look for the other actual necessary being. So this could not be any type of pantheism or anything like that, because that would mean that God is made of parts.
Okay, I think I see what you're saying there. Okay,
well, godless sowing. To be fair, I mean, I don't know what the doctrine of in the Quran says, but philosophically speaking, what he's saying, sounds pretty logical. So I think that's where he's trying to go with me as an atheist. He's trying to convince me of that there's a possibility, right, of this thing that's singular, right? Because that's like the ultimate prime mover argument, right? It has to be the one thing. It can't be a pantheistic, like a group of occurrences. It has to be a singular occurrence, which is that mind of God thing. So we're kind of we're vaguely referencing this, but we're not going to get into it too bad. Yeah, Brett Keane shows up later. It's going to be fun.
But I mean, I come back to the problem of why there couldn't be more than one necessary being. But that's I guess highly. But I had another question. Sorry, I don't want to take up too much of your time if you have other callers or anything like that.
You're good, bro. You're good.
Okay.
Take as much time as you need.
Just in relation to the you were kind of talking about there's a higher plane. You can be on kind of a neutral plane. Obviously, there's you guys do believe in hell, right? So
Yeah.
There's different tiers of where you can kind of land, or a spectrum or something. Kind of, can you explain that to me?
On that note, we're going to take a brief commercial break. In case you didn't hear earlier, this show is brought to you by
Magnavolt, the final word in auto security. No embarrassing alarm noise, no need to trouble the police. And it won't even run down your battery.
Magnavolt. Lethal response.
Okay, yeah, the editing needs some work. I'm sorry. I was having fun with that, so I got a couple of commercial breaks now for absolutely no reason. RoboCop 2, by the way. Yeah, it's the source. And maybe I'll get a copyright strike for that one. I don't know. I tried to get yeah. Thank you, Godless Sewing, for that, that idea. that's a straight Godless Sewing inspiration. Like, yeah. Speaking of which, you can sign up at Patreon or donate on PayPal if you're so inclined to support whatever this nonsense is. All right. Let's just get right back into it.
Yeah, so we have the realm of souls to which we existed in before we were physical human beings. And when I say me, I'm not talking about my body. I can say my body because my body is possessed by me. I am the soul. So my mind, will, emotions, everything that makes me me, my personality, all that I consider the soul. Now we can have that discussion. That's a discussion that'll get into, theory of mind. It'll get into, materialism versus dualism.
I honestly don't want to address that discussion right now, and I'm going to evade it. I don't want to get into the soul being identical with the self and the mind material. What is this? No, we were on a different topic. In my humble opinion. So I'm going to try to respectfully redirect.
Like, for example, I'm a substance dualist now that I've become a theist. Even before, when I was an atheist, I actually took up substance dualism. But outside of all that, we have that realm. Now, you can either choose to come to Earth and become a human being and take this test. And after this test, if you've passed the test, you can be automatically granted paradise or Jannah. You could be granted Jannah. If you're a Muslim, Muslims will always eventually get to Jannah. It's not like the Christians to where if you declare something, you're automatically saved and you won't touch the hellfire. That's not true in Islam. We do not believe necessarily that everyone that goes to hell will be there forever. There are some, we feel like there's levels to sin. There are lesser sins and greater sins, which I believe is another thing that makes Islam more logical than Christianity, because in Christianity, all sin is equal. That no matter what you do, if you steal a candy bar or if you unalive a family of 4, it's all the same, which doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever. Even the way that we humans understand, justice and punishment is that there are lesser things you do wrong and there are greater things you do wrong. So, excuse me. So we have this idea that in Islam, you could be a Muslim, you could have done some horrible things in your life. So you might end up actually going to hellfire for a certain period of time if God chooses for you to go there for that time. And then after he feels as if you've spent the time you needed to there, he will pluck you out and you will be granted paradise because you've done the time for your crime. See, that's another difference we have with Christianity. But there are also non-Muslims that could possibly reach this paradise. I mean, if you truly were never given the truth of Islam, right? If you were never given that truth of Islam, that means that there's no way that you could be convinced of it. If there's no way that you could be convinced of it, why should you be punished because you weren't convinced? That seems a little problematic, which is another misconception that people have about Islam, because they think that we're so familiar with Christianity or so similar to Christianity that we have the same view as that, oh, it doesn't matter. If you didn't accept Jesus, you're screwed. We don't believe that way.
That's interesting. I did not know that. Okay, and so are there different levels within paradise as well? Like, so there's different levels of hell and there's different levels of paradise?
Yep, absolutely. Where is it? Trying to remember the exact verse.
All right, sorry, it took me a minute. Got you a link, hopefully, over there. Godless Sewing, for you to come in. So yeah, Khalil is gonna reference the Quran now. Again, I was trying to gently redirect from whatever he was talking about mind, body, soul, unity, and stuff like that, because it's a whole other bag of worms. Okay, so in his view, there's various levels of paradise and damnation, right? And you can be condemned for a period of time and then be re-released into paradise, I guess. It's kind of the way he views this, is the breakdown I get. So I'll speed it up a little bit more for the sake of our time as we go into this, if everybody's getting the gist of what we're saying here.
So in the Quran, I'm going to try and find the exact verse for you. It says, and after God created the earth, he turned to the heavens, which already existed. It wasn't that the earth was created before the heavens, which is the cosmos. He turned to the heavens and he fashioned them into 7 different levels, right? So there's 7 different levels of heaven. And then on top of heaven, there's 3 different levels of Jannah. Or I think 3, or maybe it doesn't specify how many, but there's multiple levels of Jannah above heaven, right? And when I say above, I don't necessarily mean spatially located. Above means just higher exalted, right? So there's the 7 levels of heaven. Each level gets more exalted than the next. When I say to another Muslim, if they send me a super chat and I say, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant you Jannah Firdaus, that means grant you the highest level of paradise, right? So if you're a really, really good person, you're going to get that really high level of paradise. There's different slots that you make. It's depending on how you lived your life, what type of person you were. Did you give to the needy? Did you help people out? Did you have a sincere heart? How often did you lie? How often did you hurt people on purpose? Like this belief seems to be very like violence-based and all that. I'm a U.S. veteran of the U.S. military and spent a year in Afghanistan. I tell you right now that if anybody's the violent ones, it's this country. This country is the violent ones. I went over there and I said, these are the most peaceful people. These Muslims over here, they're so peaceful. They're not trying to fight. They're trying to mind their business and live their lives. So it just completely opened my eyes to all the propaganda and misinformation about Muslims. And then when I came to Islam, I was welcomed as a white American, welcomed with open arms into the community.
Yeah, and I didn't want to get into the political spectrum of religious ideology there with him too much, as far as, yeah, sure, maybe most Muslim people are, generally peaceful, but their governments are, tend to be very hostile, not only towards outsiders, but towards, their own denominations in various like sects and stuff. So I don't there is a bit of a contradiction there as to why it seems that Islamic regimes, as opposed to most kind of Christian regimes, are more totalitarian and oppressive by and large, at least in the worldview that I receive, right? Like that's the news that I get. But again, I concede that could be a Western bias.
Because it didn't matter what I looked like. It didn't matter what my skin color was. It was, hey, this brother has come. He has come to believe in what we believe. MashaAllah. So that's kind of that aspect of it. But I'm trying to remember where I was going with this because I did go off track. What was your question?
Oh, we were just talking about kind of the different levels of.
Yes. Okay, so
there'd be heaven or hell exists.
There's multiple
Spiritual
levels of
existence.
Jannah, and then there's also within this life, we believe that there are human beings and there are also jinn. And jinn we cannot see. They're immaterial. They're made of smokeless fire, and they can exist and they can be good or bad. I mean, if you watch what is it, Supernatural, the TV show, jinns tend to always be these bad things. But they're not always bad. They have free will. They're going to be judged on the last day, just like human beings are. And they can either go to heaven or hell. Now, there are also multiple different levels of hell, too.
Now, this may be, I don't want to misrepresent, but when I hear jinn, I think of like fairies. Aren't jinn like similar to like fairies, but they're like evil? Maybe that's a different, I don't want to, but that's just what immediately came to my mind.
The lower you get into hell, the worse it is for you. So yeah, there are multiple levels of hell. There are different realms of like this earthly life. Actually, this earth right here, this life we're in, is the lowest level of paradise, or not of paradise, but of heaven. Right. So this is the lowest level of heaven. And then after we depart from our bodies and we go to the grave and it's Judgment Day, we could end up in any one of those other levels of heaven or paradise.
Okay. Well, that's a bit to take in, but I appreciate you schooling me and stuff. I don't want to again take up too much of your time with that. If you had other things you want to, I'm not.
I want to make sure all your questions are answered. If you want to present objections, like I don't ever.
Yes, trying to come into the stream super humble, as you can see. Super duper humble. We'll take another commercial break here. Wait, check it out.
Lockdown Records presents a Hip Hop Christmas. You'll get such classics as Steve's Nuts Roasted on an Open Fire, A Sleigh Ride in My 64, Annie Up Bitch, It's Christmas, and many more.
Buy that shit,
Get this 2 CD set.
So I've been doing a little bit of freaking binge watching here, in my spare time. On the hot seat with Ia Dawa. Is it Ia or EA? I'm not sure, but I'll just call him Khalil, which is his name. It's the channel name. They have a pretty fresh Muslim rap at the beginning of this. I gotta say, it's kind of catchy. Like I hear the words, and it's cringe as fuck, but it's also kind of catchy. It's hooky.
Don't ever want to make anybody be in a hurry, especially if they're a new face to the channel that hasn't been up. Now, if it's somebody that I've had on my stream 20 times and we're still disagreeing.
Actually, 3244. Remember 3244. We're going to go back and listen to the rap, and then we'll come back.
They wanna know about Islam, we'll give them da'wah. They wanna know what Muslim does, we'll give them da'wah. When they wanna hate on our deen, we'll give them da'wah. Who's the one and only? Nobody but Allah.
Let me break it down right now for you. Dawah is a call to you. It's an invitation to change your life. Calling you to see the truth. Back in the day, I was living a lie. I was lost deep inside. Then I got another chance with my life. I was coming back to Islam.
They wanna know about Islam, we'll give them.
I have no idea who's responsible for that, but thank you. Oh, Brett Keen's almost going to arrive. So 32 something. All right, 33 minutes. Yeah, close enough. Somewhere in there. It's not really that important. Check out the new graphics if you haven't seen them. Geo Sam made this one for us. Love it. short and sweet. I could put any music behind it, using my editor and stuff. So that's cool. Many thanks to GeoSam for the help with that. I've been slow to get these vocals going for this new track with Tobin and Kendra. They put some music to a song I was working on, and we collaborated online on that. And so I'm hoping to release that maybe around New Year's, maybe on the new year. That'd be a good thing to kick the new year off right. I just haven't been doing as much music as I'd like, so I'm a little out of practice. I just have to devote a little more time, but it's all a matter of like trying to keep everything on track and balance my time and everything like that, so that I don't put myself in the hole again. Discipline equals freedom. Jocko Willink. Yeah. All right, let's see where we pick up here. Brett Keen's going to come into the room soon. He's going to start cross-examining me. It's going to be fun. Back and pagan deities and all different types of pantheism and stuff like that. So I tend to be more like inclined to just believe like anything that is observable and natural. And why should there be anything supernatural? But I'm not like I'm still kind of studying philosophy to kind of get into the metaphysics and things like that. So I don't understand it very well. So it's not like something I'm prepared to debate on. But that's just my understanding of the world. I was kind of raised loosely Catholic, but I never really could subscribe to that. There's so many problems with it.
Absolutely.
So yeah, just learning about different religions and comparing them.
Let me read you this real quick, and you let me know what you think it's talking about. So have that it's Surah Al-Anbiya, verse 30. Have not those who disbelieve known that the heavens and the earth were eventually of one piece, and then we parted them and made every living thing from water. So specifically on the heavens and the earth, so all the material that makes up the cosmos was all one piece, and then they were parted. What does that sound like to you?
It sounds a lot like a Big Bang to me.
Yes. As a Muslim, I believe in a 13.8 billion year old universe that came from a similar occurrence to the Big Bang. Or I would say I don't reject Big Bang cosmology. I think that it's actually argued for in this book. There's actually another verse that supports this. It's Surah Atur, or not Atur, Surah Ad-Dariyat, which is 51. We have built the heavens with might, and we it is who makes the vast expanse of it. So talking about the heavens expanding. So the heavens continue to expand. So we can see that through microwave background radiation. I'm also a proponent of evolution. I don't disregard abiogenesis or evolution. I just have a slight change due to my theological beliefs. A slight change that Adam alayhi salam was a special creation of God. But there's no reason to dismiss the fact that God could have taken protein and given life to protein that created single-celled organisms that through speciation in a long period of micro evolution had then formed into multicellular organisms that made plants, that made different animals, that made amphibians, that eventually brought us to Neanderthal and Homo erectus and other hominoid species like that. I would just say.
All right, now everybody, play nice. No debates inside chat. Let's do it in the live chat. No, I'm just joking. But seriously, so Khalil's worldview is apparently consistent with all of evolution, all of cosmological discovery. It's going to align perfectly. I mean, we just mentioned Big Bang, and he brought up abiogenesis. Don't make me time you both out. Wait, I can't do that to Godless Sonic because he's a mod, huh? Well, now I have to make Richard a mod. See, that's how that one works. I don't like pitting people against each other. I want to be a neutral platform, damn you. A neutral atheist platform. You both have invites to this stream, so let's grow up and duke it out like men. It's going to take me a minute, but I'm going to address this. I swear I'm going to fucking address this. I'm totally sidetracked by the side chat now. It's how this fucking works. Toke up. Take it to the head. It's alright. That's what I'm doing. I have, I think I showed it on Godless Street too, but I had this orange, what do they call it? Orange gas. And I mixed it together with these cookies I have. Which are delicious, by the way. They're delicious cookies. That one had like super high content, I think. I don't have the package anymore. I don't remember what it was. Oh, yeah. Okay, so it wasn't that big. 31%. But this stuff was super sticky. I had to unroll it. Okay, Richard does have a wrench. Damn it. Okay, good. You both have wrenches. Nobody time anybody time. Getting timed out here. Excuse me. All right. I'll just put the StreamYard link in the chat. We're all friends here. Nobody's going to porn bomb me today. If they do, I'll be smart enough to take Titan's advice and promptly delete the stream this time. Last time I hesitated too long. What's the worst that could happen? I could delete everything on your YouTube channel. Yes. Yes, they will. All right. Well, we wait for Richard to get here.
Say that a
maybe
lot of that same DNA was taken and created Adam with the clay of the ground, and he was a special creation that has a very similar DNA makeup to some of these other species.
All right. So in Khalil's view, see Richard in the back, Islam is compatible with both evolution and Big Bang cosmology. I don't know if that is the standard view or something that's very unique. Richard, how you doing, man?
Peace and respect to you all. As far as I understand, he qualifies that statement as saying, I feel and I believe and I think. So, in saying that, and I've asked him about it in particular, he's saying that not all of Islam would agree with him on this point.
Well, I got that, but like, what's the percentage? I mean, I've heard this from other Muslims that they can make Islam compatible with logic and scientific reasoning and stuff. But what do you think? I mean, I don't know how much you know about that, but what would you say the percentages of Muslims who would agree?
Okay, this is completely off the cuff. I have no citations, and I have only a small survey to go from. But my experience has been so far that is probably around 70 to 85% positive for a naturalistic, but all a guided process to get eventually to what we see right now, and Big Bang cosmology and ancient Earth.
Okay, well, at least they've gone that far. So you still have, like, the contingent being the mind that programs the machine, so to speak, right? But you have to use the chain of causation logically to get there.
Right.
So they just kind of reconciled those two things.
Yeah, this is the branch of Islam that gives great value to things like the complexity of poetry, the necessity of logic, that you never go outside of something that isn't logically necessary, those kinds of ideas. So, and that would not include a pretty good sized portion of the Muslim community.
Yeah, and it defies logic in so many other ways, which we didn't address. Like, you know, in his view, if apostasy like really isn't that big of a deal, then why is that so much of Islamic law revolves around executing and apostates and making an example of them and things like that? Which I didn't ask, but
Well, I would give my opinion on it, but like I said, it's a small survey, and I'm speaking from my experience, which means it doesn't mean it's universal at all. You can name any people group of any good size, you're going to find extremists within that people group. It really doesn't matter what you identify. And what they say is the people who hold to those ideas are the extremists. And they'll quote, and they have quoted to me, verses from Quran that say things like, if your enemy puts down his sword, you must too. You must also put your sword down. So it's not always in all cases kill everybody, you know, if they disagree with you. That's just not the way that I've heard it pronounced.
yeah, I guess it depends on the source. What's up, God Sewing? Good to see ya.
What's up? What's up? My voice is still gone. It's still completely trash. Yeah. So I'm gonna say what I have to say, and then I'm just gonna stop talking.
Okay.
What Khalil is talking about is white colonial Islam. He is a front door Muslim. He represents what they want to show white people. He does not represent the religion at all. He is a Western American version of it. I've been to Egypt. I've been to Saudi Arabia. They wouldn't even let him walk in the mosque. I'm not even joking you. If you were not my color, they wouldn't even let him. He would have to go somewhere else. So I think we need to stop lying about religion, because I actually experienced it. And Richard, I was former NOI, and I've seen, I've actually, well, that's a different story for a different day. But
and hopefully a day your voice is better.
What's that?
And hopefully a day where your voice is treating you better.
Yeah, my whole point is, it's insulting to people who actually believe in the religion that this man who is brand new can even speak on it. And I'm an atheist, but I have respect for religion, and I would never speak on something that I didn't know or lived. I was raised Roman Catholic, and I converted to Islam at a very young age. At a very young age, because I was impressionable. You know what I'm saying? So it's insulting to people who put in the footwork. I don't know this man, but he represents colonialism. This is erasure. This is erasure right here. Who is he to speak on something that he literally just the guy doesn't even have the guy doesn't even have no, I agree with you, Ox. I'm just trying to be I'm respectful to people who aren't respectful to me. So regardless, it's kind of insulting. It's just whatever. And so when you say that, Richard, I'm not trying to be a dick to you, but when you say certain things, I've been to Egypt, I've stood in these fucking temples, I've been to Saudi Arabia and sat down and dined with these people and lived with them. So okay. It's not just words. It's a culture. It's something that people live. And I think sometimes in America we forget that.
My experience has been that Khalil often reminds people he's a new Muslim. And factually, between 75% and 90% of the people on his channel are darker than you.
You can't, so what? That means nothing to me. That, like, again, Again, you're just.
So I'm not allowed
referencing
to
something
respond to what you said, although
No,
you
no,
went on
no,
for
I'm
about
not-
5 minutes.
No, I'm not. I'm not here to debate you. Your brother is stalking me on the internet and going around and telling lies. I don't respect you one bit.
Wait.
One bit.
What's that? How
Okay.
am I back?
You're one bit. So no,
Am I
don't-
back? Am I back?
I don't care. You are
Okay.
misrepresenting you. I don't care.
No,
You
I don't-
are literally part of this cult of people who hate people for no reason, and then
I
go
don't
and
hate
spread
you.
that hate.
I'm not hating on you. I'm not
Whatever.
spreading hate about you.
I'm being stalked by your brother, and I don't think it's okay.
Okay, I don't know what's going on, but I know that I am not Beck. We're two separate human beings. I know that. As to Khalil and his channel,
You're referencing someone I don't know, and you're using people I don't know as references. All I see is
What?
this man misrepresenting a
Yeah.
religion, and
All
that's
right.
it. That's my statement.
Wait.
That's it. I'm not going to get in debate about it. You can.
Just wait. Let's. Hold on. So let's back it up. Everybody breathe. If we're gonna, okay, it looks like Will left. Okay, yeah. I mean, okay, that got heated. Richard, come back in. Okay, so
that was a very one-sided temperature change. I'm not feeling upset at all.
okay,
But I am
gotcha,
trying to
yeah.
address the things that were said. I'd like to address if it's okay.
Yeah. I mean, I understand, and you're not back, and whatever's going on between them, if they need to talk it out or not, whatever, that's that should be between them. I don't think it has any place in the conversation we're having. But go ahead and just as long as we've gotten that much clear. Go ahead with whatever you meant to say, Richard. I'm going to gather myself.
Concerning EA Dawa, which 2 years ago was empathetic atheist, and that's what EA stood for then. Of course, trying to keep channel recognition, he made kept EA, but made it stand for something else that has to do with what he's doing on his channel, and that was witty. But it's his channel, so. And he started the channel, so he kind of has rulership, which is, I try to be respectful of you. This is your channel. So the reason that he is in charge on that channel is because it's his channel. I guess, I don't know why I need to say that. And the majority of people that are on that channel that are Islamic, that are Muslim, they are of these traditions, and most of them were born into it. So they don't let him say things, and they have not educated him from outside of a tradition. And yes, these people have educated him. So he is speaking from a certain tradition, the one he's familiar with. Go figure, people speak from their experience. Now they have put Khalil specifically on a bit of a platform because he is good at arguing one certain argument, okay? Although he's expanding that to two separate arguments, but when they are asked, the channel is asked with other people on panel almost every time, a certain thing about the religion by some outside person, he is not always the one to answer. He will say something like, well, that's not my specialty. I don't really know much about that. I'm new in the faith. And defer to, well, other members. So, and the other members who were born into this faith make up, depending on which show you watch, at least 50% of the channel, and sometimes as much as 85% of the panel on the channel. So that's my response.
All right, that's interesting. I feel like sometimes I do that. Like, I'd rather, if we're in conversations, like defer to people who know more on a subject than I do, right? But I'm not claiming a faith. Like, I'm used to being in like a room, with a panel of like, 4 Christians and, 1 or 2 atheists or something. So that doesn't seem unusual to me. But like you said, like Khalil has been like doing debates and things like that. So he does claim to profess knowledge in that way, right?
Well, he has 2 base arguments. I'm not going to go over all of it because you'll get bored most likely, and maybe you've heard it anyway. But there's a contingency argument, and then for the necessity of God. He specializes in that, and when that comes up, he handles it. And then he's specializing and becoming more refined in argumentation against the traditional Christian view of the Trinity, because it's nonsensical and can be shown to be inconsistent in classical logic. And that's another specialty that he takes in argumentation of necessary identity and personage. And let me wrap that up by saying, I'll just wrap it up there.
Okay. I mean, we didn't get deep into that, but that's, kind of where I'm pointing at with asking epistemological questions and more, philosophically minded debate where, I want to get, again, like what the positive arguments that he is making rather than like straw manning him. So that was kind of my intention in going in there last night, to try to ask those types of questions and not to present a hostile argument,
Right. If you want to get into some depth of that, I'm actually fairly familiar with the argumentation, and you can get, a third person perspective on it because, I'm not trying to convert anyone to anything.
Yeah, I'm kind of interested in the stuff Brett says later about nihilistic atheism, but I don't know if you guys kept speaking on that or whether that was just something he kept throwing at me when I was in there, if you heard that part.
Yeah, the word Israel means those that struggle with God, and I will say that that Brett Keane is of Israel. I mean, he wants to defend it sometimes, he wants to attack it sometimes, he wants to lose his faith sometimes he's strong. I mean, he's a human being. I don't see anything wrong with that.
So when you say of Israel, you mean more of the Jewish faith, Old Testament type of faith, or?
I mean the literal translation of the word, them that struggle with God.
That's he's the one that struggles with God. Oh, okay.
He is struggling with God. He is being Israel, yeah.
Right. Yeah, because I think he decided he wanted to come after me a little bit. I wasn't taking the bait, but...
Right. Well, if you looked at the 20-plus years of Brett Keane, you would see this repeating pattern I'm describing.
I've only heard about him briefly through The Raging Atheist and a couple other streams, but no, as far as I know, I mean, most people in the atheist community don't really let him around in my experience. So, but I wasn't really like around for the height of that. It was just kind of the tail end where they're like, oh yeah, and this one guy,
Yeah, he's a little bit infamous. It's true.
There are people like that where if you let them into your streams, there are people from other communities who just won't participate or whatever, or they'll just, so yeah, I don't know. I've been struggling to, try to be, neutral to people that I don't know, but kind of being mindful of the information I've received about them. Like, I had Jill in the stream a couple times, and he was actually pretty respectful for the most part, but we didn't get into, like, the hard debate. And then when I had Wildheart in the same room, they started arguing on slavery. But, Wildheart was drunk, and so that was just, going nowhere. So it just...
Right.
I think that was the
So,
same stream that we had a biblical Christological back when he was still called that. He came in too. Um,
you
fun
know,
times.
the irony in Jill and his dichotomy in wanting to understand and believe the Bible is that he is of a people who recently were slaves, and he'll defend slavery.
Yeah, well, and Khalil was doing a bit of that too, and I didn't want to like again get into that when I let him make his argument last night, and it was just okay. Well, some people just kind of earn their keep, but you're still not really referencing any of the commands. And I don't specifically know if or how the Quran would differentiate, but if you go by the Christian worldview, you have you can beat your slave as long as he doesn't die, etc., etc. Where they have to explain that away.
And I'm not trying to be offensive to you, actually, but it seems that in the way that you're talking about it, you've heard Christians defend this and describe this more than just a handful of times, right?
Yeah, Christians for sure. Yes.
Okay,
That was my question to Khalil, which I don't think he really made a very different argument from Jill in defending the Quran. Well, we think that there were different types of slaves and they were treated better, but that doesn't explain the other thing.
Okay. Well, let me take you to a meta level here and see if you are wanting to look down at this from a higher view. If I say something like Christians interact poorly with reality because of their beliefs of the Bible, and that makes them maladjust, and it makes them persecuting and angry and self-righteous, and none of those things make sense in reality, then I can say collectively, Christians don't make sense in reality. Or do you disagree?
Wait. Can you repeat the question? Maybe we might have to rephrase because collectively Christians don't make.
What I'm saying is that Christians are evidently maladjust in reality. You agree or you don't agree?
I think it depends on the context. I mean, Christians can be maladjust in reality. I think, given the time, the period that Christianity came about, it made sense with less understanding of how the world worked.
Yeah, but you didn't experience those societies. You're experiencing the one you're in.
Well, okay, that's just judging through the lens of history, sure.
So what we experience right now is in the present view of a majority of Christians that they are maladjust to society and reality, and they're combating with these things, doing things like denying obvious science. Yes?
Sometimes they do. I mean, I don't see all Christians doing that, but I sometimes they do, yes.
Oh, okay, not all. Right. There are outlier groups that do not reject Big Bang, etc., evolution,
Right.
etc. But they're outliers. But I'm talking about a majority because I'm talking about a too generalistic overview because I'm trying to present an idea, and we can work out the definitive parts of it later if you like.
I think, well, in my experience, and this isn't what I've experienced on YouTube, but in my personal life, more Christians will try to re-argue like what temporality means, that when you're speaking in biblical terms, years could be thousands of years or something like that. Like,
does that make sense to you?
It doesn't, but I've heard it argued pretty fervently.
That's what the whole problem is that you've heard it argued fervently and you're familiar with the arguments, but you also reject the arguments. Yes.
Yeah, I do.
Now, is that because they don't make sense, or is it because you like to reject things that do make sense?
Well, it's because it only makes sense in context of the story, but not in context of anything I've actually experienced or can identify
like
with.
Reality. So they are maladjust to reality.
Yeah, or they have some. I mean, it's like when you're talking about, that's why I consider the Bible a fiction or mythology. But I think that,
That's
you
fine.
know, if you consider that all fiction incorporates some truth, well then, yeah, it makes sense that some true things would still be in that book, right? Like,
Fair enough. Fair enough. But my point is that you learned to read the Bible from people who don't make sense in reality.
well, yeah, no, I mean, that's why I'd much rather hear a more logical perspective.
Okay, so
Um,
I'm asking you to fully reject Christianity. That's what I'm asking you to do, at least for this conversation. Just fully reject it. Because
oh, yeah. Okay.
the people who propose it don't make sense against reality. Worse than that, even within their own view, I can show that they're inconsistent within the Bible, that they're not actually following all the Bible. Okay? And I'll give you a quick for instance on slavery. The word slave master in the Bible, properly translated, is a sovereign. Sovereign. And the word sovereign means flawless, righteous, deemed by God, leader. It means those things. Now,
Wasn't that also synonymous with the term for like a lord in Roman law? Would they call him a
Yes.
sovereign? They were like a
Yes,
landlord.
that's right. No, that's
Okay.
perfect. Good job. Yeah, perfect. Okay. So it's talking about a sovereign. Now, no one ever in actuality in history that owned a slave would be referred to as a sovereign by a god. That doesn't make sense. They're not. Okay? And then the words father in the slave laws, which mother, brother, uncle never come up. You know, sister never comes up in slave law, but father does. And when you look at that word father, it doesn't mean the sperm donor. It means Aub, Abba, the chief father. It means God. So Christians are reading this poorly and justifying their own prejudices. But what the text reads is a conversation between the Father and the Son, the sovereign, about who saved the person. And if you look into the word aved, if you look into the word aved, it includes being a volunteer worshiper. It's not talking about actual physical slavery, but the way the sentence structure is, it's using actual slavery as a parable to describe the relationship between a religious person, the father, and the son.
Okay, and just to address the disagreement here, which I don't think was really a disagreement, I think you actually agreed with Will there with what he was saying, that Khalil in his ideology, as far as Islam is concerned, is an outlier in believing differently in that regard, right? Like, you guys actually agree on that issue. So
Yeah, I mean, I've heard Khalil say it, I don't know how many times, more times than I'd like to try to count and figure out.
okay, so there's no actual disagreement there. Just to be clear.
Yeah. I don't know why it's offensive that I asked him his Islamic background, but somehow that was very offensive. I apologize, Will. I was actually asking you a genuine question so I could understand your position. I didn't challenge you to defend yourself.
Clearly, something that's, there's a lot of passion involved here and some other underlying issues. If we're gonna, if Beck and Will are gonna talk, I'd hope they'd be able to do it civilly. They could do it here, but if that's not an option right now, it's not. But whatever. I only have some limited knowledge of what went on there. So,
I mean, if someone said to me they're a Christian, like Will said, they understood Christianity, right? Like Will said, I understand Islam at some depth. I might ask them, what branch of Christian were you or your family? Because
well, he said he got involved in Nation of Islam, and he got indoctrinated, I guess, when at a younger age. So he's got some passion there. It sounds like, but
Right.
well, you know, it's like you got to kind of like talk it out. Like, I think we're all here for peaceful discussion, you know. So
Okay. So I was just trying to understand the position. I wasn't attacking you. That's all I'm saying.
yeah, I haven't spoken to Beck in a while myself. I know he's taken some time off too, so it's kind of, you know, here and there. So I didn't really know this whole thing was going on until recently. But come on, y'all, let's be adults about it. Let's be adults about it, please. And I didn't kick you out, Will. I just put you guys in the backstage for a second to cool off. So I mean, you know, if you want to talk, come back in. That's all I was doing. All right. Elephants in the room. It's like a stampede.
Did you want to go back to video, or did you have a topic change, or could I suggest something, or
You can
how does that
absolutely
work?
suggest anything you want. I mean, we can go back to the video too, but I don't want to like drag that out. If you got something more interesting, let's go for it. Like, yeah, we can totally steer this.
So here's overall what I'm saying. Christians have different sects, and plenty of them, because they can't become consistent. Okay? And the reason they can't become consistent is because the base ideas of like the Trinity and what God is not coherent within the text, so they can't consider all of the text. So this, you know, the Catholics choose these parts of the text, the Presbyterians choose these parts of the text, and you can even hear it in the preachings, where the preachers of the Presbyterian Church, for instance, will always quote the same parts of the text. You see? But what they can't take into consideration is the whole of the text. And that's mostly because the way they're looking at the Trinity traditionally, which the Trinity is a new idea, by the way. It's not deeply traditional. Where they're assigning personage to the God, right? And they also want there to be personage, not just being, in the Son, the Father, and the Holy Ghost. They're saying those are persons. But what does the text describe? The text describes that God is spirit, and then it qualifies what it means by spirit, and it lists 7 base, very, very germane, 7 spirits of God, which are all immaterial constructs. In other words, ideals. Things like knowledge and counsel and understanding and fear and power and wisdom. Ideals. Things you should strive for, right? And it also lists quite a few repercussions. Forgiveness, love, kindness, long-suffering, these kinds of things. Those are repercussions of that set of ideals. That is, if you followed those ideals, you would act loving, for instance, right? And then the text describes that to the Son, the Father is God. This is where they get confused. It only says that to the Son, the Father is God. And the Father himself never claims himself God. He just doesn't. Why? Because he's not. He's not a set of ideals. He's a being with personage. He has personality. He wipes his butt. Stuff like that. Just like the Son does. So, and it repeats this theme more than once in the text. In fact, of the story of Moses, where Moses is supposed to speak aloud to the people, he's slow of speech. So the Father says to him, tell you what, take your brother Aaron. He's good at talking. You tell him what to say, he'll announce it. And you will be to him as God. You see that? Because Moses has got the knowledge, Aaron has got the voice, they work as a team, but to Aaron, Moses is God. Now, is that the same thing as saying Moses is God? No Christian would think Moses is God, right? But they do conflate the Father with God, where there's no claim, and other examples of the same thing going on. I was pausing for you to respond.
I just wanted to make sure you were finished and that I was gathering that too. And apparently I can do this. I'm gonna do this. Sorry, no. Shit. It's gonna take me 1 second here. So yeah, that's what makes no sense to me. Is that you have oh shit? Did I just
turned off side chat?
Yes, I did. I just blocked those two because they're just going at it and it's distracting as fuck. Totally unrelated to what we're talking about. So temporarily timed out.
do you want me to summate the idea that I was just presenting?
Wait, no. I want to see. I want to see if I can repeat it back. In the the son communicating with the father, and then they would all. Okay. Yeah, maybe a summary.
So the Moses and the father in their respective stories are as God to the student. In the case of Moses, that's Aaron. In the case of the father, that's the son.
So this is like it's a relative position. It's not an absolute.
Right. No, that's perfect. So in the absolute, the Father is not God, and that's the Christian mistake. But in the relative, from the perspective of the Son, the Father is God, because the Son doesn't know God yet. He's in a learning process. Just like I could say to the newly adherent, the preacher is God, and that's not a wrong way to say it.
Okay, so I've got a. So then there's like a chain of holiness leading back to.
Right.
Right. Like so each predecessor. Okay. Wait. As long as they would have to be preaching the right thing, because if they weren't preaching the godly thing, they would be of a different. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a problem. It's a big problem, and it causes separations in churches. Which is every evidence that Matt Dillahunty is likely right. That it follows logically they can't all be right, now can they? Now they could all be wrong.
So you think the church being like separated, splintered into different factions, maybe actually made it was like another hindrance, like because then each of them gets some facet of the story wrong because they're divided, right?
Well, of course, yes.
Okay.
See, the idea that they have of the Trinity, which is not justifiable in the text, definitionally, you can't justify it in the text, is not only logically inconsistent, but it causes you to try to ignore and highlight certain parts of the Bible. That's called cherry picking. We all know that's a logical fallacy. But in an overview, if you just ignore churches, and I've read it as in an umbrella kind of a reading frame that covers all of it, ignores none of it, it actually works really well with itself, and there's nothing logically inconsistent about it, and it's plausible in reality, and it doesn't defeat physics. But I don't have a church doctrine.
Okay. All right. So I don't want to go too far off, but I asked Khalil this. I don't think I've asked you this question, but why would you tend towards a monotheistic view rather than a polytheistic view? Like, why couldn't there?
Okay, there's the Son and the Father, and archangels and angels of a wide variety. Okay, all of them have different jobs and specializations. All that's fine. All that is part of God. Okay, that is, they're all adherent to God. So in that way, it's extremely polytheistic. But all of them are referring back to that standardized set, call it their Constitution and Bill of Rights, where it's a set of immaterial constructs for running a society. And they say, all of them, individually and collectively say several times, do not worship me, worship God. That is, the highest thing is our social standards, not people in the society. We don't worship people. That's wrong. And we all know that we have to make ourselves worship a living being, and that feels icky and weird. Well, good. That means you're a human. It should feel icky and weird. But the angels don't disagree with you. The Father doesn't disagree with you, neither does the Son.
Well, I mean, in some sense, people they idolize other people. I don't know if, maybe worship was kind of like a radical term there, but there's certainly like celebrity worship and things like that.
Well, without getting too deep into that conversation, we have a tendency to need or want or choose a god of some kind, and it could be a basketball star, it could be anybody, it doesn't matter. But we don't worship them. Like when you meet Michael Jordan, being about my age, and if you were a huge fan, you'd want to shake his hand and maybe I can get a hug out of him, and that's super cool. And you brag to your friends till you die of old age that you met the guy. But you would not prostrate yourself and pray to him. You would not spend hours in meditation trying to consider what kind of shot he would make in this situation. I mean, it's just. That would be worship.
I mean, but it's like how much time when you consider worship and idolatry, and I guess this is why there's laws against that in the Bible, right? Like the false idols and things like that, because some people do devote more of their thought, more of their energy in their life, especially in the younger years, to that type of when I, attain a certain age or something, I'm going to, get out there and they even have fantasies about potentially becoming partnered with these celebrities. Like we've all had this type of thing. Sure. So or at least many people do, right? So is that not similar to kind of it's just kind of a more earthly experience compared to the spiritual experience, but what they talk about an earthly experience in spirituality, and you're kind of hoping to achieve the same thing in a way with a supernatural deity. I'm going to be in perfection with this all wise, all loving being.
Okay. So just staying to what I understand the text is trying to portray. Oh, peace and respect, William Freeman. From what I can understand, in my very subjective view of the Bible, what it's trying to portray is the only thing worth worship, meditation, real consideration, is the perfect set of ideals. And that should inform the person meditating on them how to treat themselves, how to treat their family, how to treat their physical environment, how to treat people in their environment, how to treat strangers. Okay? And it goes into great depth as to how to think about all of those things, especially in Buddhism. Buddhism is friggin' huge on that. But that is the thing worth worshiping, is rationality, reason, objective morals, those kinds of things. But no person is worth worship, because we're all equal. Although you might have some great skill that is just amazing, and I really think that's a really great skill, and maybe I want to emulate you, maybe I even idolize you to some point. But if you ever find someone praying to Bruce Lee, I mean, I'd like to hear about that.
Well, I would say if we consider prayer to be a form of discipline, then you would be, every time you practice Jeet Kune Do, right? you would be in a sense doing a ritual to Bruce Lee or of Bruce Lee, right? And it's a discipline that helps you master a thing, right?
But not to. It's it's not to.
So, in the practice of prayer, the discipline is merely speaking to a being that you have to believe is listening to prayer, right?
That confused me. Could you restate that in some other words?
Well, if prayer was when you're differentiating, like Bruce Lee cannot hear me when I practice Jeet Kune Do, right? But God can hear me when I exercise in prayer.
I don't know where you got that from, other than Christianity. You can't derive what you just said from the Bible.
Okay, well then, so how do you interpret prayer then? Because it sounds different than what I've usually heard.
Prayer is communication, or is it supposed to be? It's described as communication between two conscious beings that have personage. So you would have to pray to the Father, or you could pray to the Son, or you could pray to some angel, or you could pray to a demon, or you could pray to Satan. Those all have personage. But God doesn't have personage in the Bible. Now you can worship, but worship is not prayer. Prayer is, I need a teacher, and worship is, I honor this thing the highest. Now, if you're confused and you worship your teacher, you're evidently misguided. The biology professor is not biology.
So I could pray to a thing that I do not worship.
Absolutely. I know Christians conflate these things. I deeply apologize for the confusion that they've taught you. It's not your fault. It's not on you at all.
Yeah, and I want to be clear on how we differentiate those two things, because I wasn't even clear on whether a Messiah could be a prophet or not, or vice versa. Last night,
someone could be Messiah. Oh, you already straightened it out. Okay, sorry.
Well, as far as Khalil told me his version and things like that, but I don't know if you would agree with his view.
It's profound to me that because of the tradition of Islam, that they are not allowed a choice about how it is read. Okay, they are told how to read it, and they are told they cannot think of it another way. Okay, so in that way, it's very cultish, I admit. However, it fully agrees with the Bible in a consistent reading frame, which I have to go, well, that can't be an accident, you know? And actually, there is nothing in Quran itself, hadiths are another question, but there's nothing in Quran itself that argues with a consistent reading frame from within the Bible. It's the same story, from a slightly different point of view, but the same story. It's just like there's nothing weird about a Muslim wearing a t-shirt that reads "I love Jesus." There's nothing weird about that. That is demanded of them.
But there are some very different laws pertaining to, like, particularly, I mean, when I think of like the hijab, which I didn't bring up, but why does Islam demand the hijab when Christianity does not?
Actually, Christianity does the same way as Islam, as Quran. Sorry, not Islam. As Quran does, in the understanding that I've adopted, that all of this is talking about end times and physical protection of the people. That women are in greater danger because they're physically not as strong, and they need hidden away and protected in walled cities, etc. Nothing wrong with a hijab in that situation. It kind of makes sense. You're disguising them to look more like men.
Well, yeah, I mean, the Bible, I think, prescribes for modesty, right? But it doesn't necessarily say, whereas people interpret the Quran to say something a little more specific. And I want to walk that back because you may have corrected me, and I don't want to use the language incorrectly, right? So, like, Islam is the religion based on the Quran, and we call people who believe in Islam Muslims, right? So I want to make sure I'm using language correctly. So when you say according to Quran, there is what I
maybe the language I should have used.
So yes, so Quran is the religion, right?
Okay.
It's the story that informs the religion. Muslim is the religion, and Islam is a practitioner.
Okay. Okay.
Or did I say that backward? Islam is the religion, and a Muslim is the practitioner. Okay, it
Right,
changes
okay.
tense. I've just realized it changes tense, and it's where it appears in the sentence which one you use.
Okay, gotcha.
So I don't know. You get used to hearing it and you use it correctly, just like I learned English, I guess.
I was thinking about that earlier, about how there's some context in which it could be considered like racist to call, any person from the Middle East a Muslim, or the term Arab, which I don't know if it's used colloquially anymore, but it's meant to describe a region of peoples, but not a belief system or a religion or whatever. And
Yeah,
those are often conflated.
Yeah, Arab is not a religion.
Right.
Any more than Hebrew is.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if I was getting that wrong last night in the conversation. I think I did a couple times.
They won't care, really. They'll just keep going and try to figure from context what you meant. I doubt they'll even correct you.
No, not usually, probably. So back to so the covering of the modesty of the woman, and you said maybe to make them even look more like men, and this is to this is a method to there's a word I'm looking for. They're trying to keep men from being lustful, right? That's the idea of it, to avoid.
No, not really, not actually. That's an extrapolation. It looks like justification for the law. So that's what they think the law must be about, and that's what they argue over, right? That men are wild beasts who just urinate on themselves in their sleeps, whatever. No, that's not what it's talking about. And you'll get few people to agree with me on this, but the Bible hasn't happened.
Right. Well, yeah, I know that your interpretation there,
but it does happen. It's promised to happen. If those who can do it make it happen, then it will happen. If they're able and willing, they'll make it happen. But there's no part of the Bible that doesn't fit into the description of end times. I'll give you for instance. If you went through the 7 announcing miracles, it would knock down the power grid, destroy governments, and put ash all over the planet. So what do you have? Well, you have an anarchy, and you have no real government. So what you got? You got martial law. That only goes so well. People start moving away from more inhabited areas. They start forming, groups or cults for survival. And what's the next thing they start doing? Building forts. They start building forts. They need to fortify themselves against other tribes. So you end up with these small cities of 10,000 or less people that has a wall around it, and they're scared of everyone. Well, yeah, of course you would. That's what people will do in that situation. And of course they're in sackcloth and ashes. They're in sackcloth because there's no more Walmart. You can't buy new clothes, and very few people are good at making cloth, So everyone's in sackcloth. And what's up with the ashes? Well, with the quaking of the earth that spits hail and fire mingled with blood, that is, it's describing a supervolcanic eruption. Yeah, everybody will be walking around in ashes. Everybody will be filthy. Everybody will have, darkened skin, filthy from the wilderness. Yeah, of course. And in that context, it makes perfect sense to try to disguise pretty young women so that they don't get kidnapped and taken to some other tribe, and with the idea that you're going to live on the earth forever and you need to survive this thing. You've got to protect certain things like women, virgins, children. You got to fortify your solace, your habitation, so that you can survive. And who wouldn't do that?
It's interesting to me because like what you paint of the Revelations is more realistic, I think, to the text, which is a much more kind of dystopian end times, right? Whereas I think a lot of religious people try to paint this rosy picture. Well, yeah, there's going to be a lot of death and war and famine, but we're all going to get to go to heaven, you know, and that's kind of their picture of it. And yeah, like what you described to me sounds like a sci-fi movie or something like.
Well, it's in every religion, you know, the time of Ragnarok, the time of trouble, end times, the arrival of Ram. It's just prevalent. It's pervasive. It's soaked with it. Those will not be easy times, and it makes sense to me that if the things predicted to be done were to be done to this earth, yeah, it would be hard times. It's not a joke. I mean, you're talking no electricity, no pumped water, no stores. You know, Walmart has been thoroughly robbed already, et cetera, like that, and all the repercussions thereof. And what you end up with is small tyrannical groups of people who were originally maybe survivalists or anarchists, and whoever has the biggest guns going around they're just putting themselves in charge.
All right, so let me ask you this though: what do you, if you think about it in those terms, where kind of religion? What do you think about the idea of self-fulfilling prophecy? If the prophecy is in the religion, then maybe the people who adhere to that religion actually kind of reinforce and make that thing actually come to pass. Whereas, like maybe if more people adhered to a radical humanist point of view, we'd be more focused on like diverting ourselves from these crises and these disasters and these wars if we, you know, didn't already believe they were going to happen. It was like predetermined.
Yeah. Okay. So the first Christians, and it's been continuous, thought that end times was tomorrow. They always thought that. And they still do today. There's always someone prophesying end times, right? And the reason for that is not necessarily selfish and angry and hateful. It might just be that individual or that group is just tired of looking at the death and suffering. They're just sick of it. And they're willing to go through an extremely hard time to get past all that so that we can stop, I don't know, killing each other, for instance. That would be nice. So they keep looking for, hoping for, wanting for end times. So they're biased, and then they exercise their pareidolia. Yeah, the prophecy over the island city outside of Tyre has been fulfilled by Alexander the Great. Sorry, no it ain't. This prophecy's fulfilled. No. And I'll tell you why they aren't fulfilled, and that's twofold. First of all, they're designed definitionally to be so big people can't do it. Okay? Why? Because people would do it, and then it would look like it was happening and it wasn't God. But then people would fulfill prophecies, not God. You see how self-defeating that is. And I forget the second point.
Okay, well, I got thrown off by people not being God, but the second point, I'm sorry, was...
My point is, if people could make the prophecies true, and they try, it would defeat God.
But why can't we undo prophecy? Like, why can't we if we were, you know, just to say, well, we will do the opposite of the things that are in this gospel. Like, okay, could we choose to do different if we have free will? I guess it would be the ultimate question. Truly have free will.
Let's consider the proposition: no God. Okay, no God. All right. So what does that mean? Y'all need to settle your differences, get along, and like feed the hungry and stuff.
Well, even if there was a God, I guess the true question would be: does God truly allow humanity to write its own future? Or is there some level of predetermination that we cannot escape?
Okay, what you just said is, will there be an intervention by angels? Well, that necessitates God. So, other than that, people can bicker, they're going to think whatever they want, but ultimately they're going to have to stop, like, I don't know, using Agent Orange on their front yard. You know?
That's funny. I was having a conversation with pesticides about with somebody about pesticides like yesterday. Actually, it came up, and yeah, no, I mean, there's definitely something to be concerned about there, and how much. But it's like, how much poison do we ingest on a regular basis anyway? Like, between burning fossil
Yeah.
fuels and stuff like that.
So on the proposition, no God, we should just start trying to be better to ourselves and our earth. Try to make it last as long as we can. Maybe till we can get off of it. That would be a good time to make it last toward, right? On the proposition there is God, it's being described such big things that we can't do it. Okay? So when people say, oh, these people did this thing and it fulfilled a prophecy, wrong. And I remember the second point now. The text reads, an evil nation needs a sign. What does that mean? What does evil nation mean? It means non-believing goyim. Doubters. So this is everything you think it is. Agnostic all the way through hard atheism. Non-believers. They take the position of either no belief or an aggressive, hard stance of I can't believe. All right? So they are the ones who need a sign. If the signs had happened, which are designed for them because they need it, then they wouldn't still be agnostic through hard atheists. Now, would they? They'd change their minds because they'd have the evidence. Okay? So it's evident that the signs have not happened in the fact that you're not a Yahwist.
Okay, so I guess that in reference to that, and a couple other things that Khalil had said in his view of Islam, that even non-believer could potentially make it to paradise in his view. And then I've heard this talk about work salvation, which I interpret as meaning even if you are not secure in your faith or your belief in the God, that if you do sufficient good for other people, you can still kind of achieve some type of salvation. Is that compatible with what you're saying?
Yes, no. Here's why. Christians conflate the instructions and demands of a general populace with the instructions and demands of the hero. And they really can't tell the difference, which is what makes the argument, oh, you've got to do everything. No, you can do nothing, and it's fine. The truth of the matter is that to the greater populace who's not the hero, they're being asked to do nothing but two things. Nothing but two things. If you can, worship God above all things. Okay? And if you can't do that, at least treat your neighbor as yourself. Humanitarianism. So Jesus says, at least be a humanitarian. But that's all they're being asked. That's it. Nothing more. All the rest of the demands and also the rewards, the great responsibilities, and the definitive carefulness that's being demanded in 613 laws is all on Jesus. He's the only one that has to do it. He's the only one that does it too, by the way.
All right, so to hit that hard question of interpretation, so any radical or orthodox believer is going to say that your view or Khalil's view is watering down what the text actually says. And how do you respond to that?
Actually, I am more literal and more adherent and more thorough and not cherry picking ever. So I can show that they're wrong about the assertion, first of all. Second of all, the view I hold is plausible in reality and consistent in logic. Theirs isn't.
All right, that makes sense. Well, I mean, because obviously they had to concede on every point. Even now, Islamic regimes, if I'm using that term correctly, yes, are having to concede to the general populace and just common sense and more humane treatment of various groups, right? Like they're
Sure, over
getting
time,
called out.
very gradually. They fight it, but they have to eventually fold. Yeah. But that's irrelevant because the Pope is not Jesus. Neither is any imam. Neither is Donald Trump.
I was going to ask if you have an opinion on the situation in Iran, or if you follow that very closely.
I've decided that none of this matters, and it's just that we're here for suffering, and what matters is our time together in heaven, in a utopian society, and how we care for each other. That's what matters. And it's like, if I had a kid, right, and you're a mass murderer, or you're a serial killer, and but I have such technology and power that you could literally like chop my kid into centimeter cubes, and I could reconstruct that kid and bring him back to life. How much does it really matter that you killed him 20 times or whatever? I mean, at some point the kid would be like, oh, it's Wednesday afternoon, Dad. Time for the serial murderer to come kill me. Kevin walks in the door. Hey, serial murderer. Hey, how's it going? Let me chop you up. Just go ahead and lay down. Try to relax. Thump, thump, thump. I know it hurts, but try to relax. And then he's back the next day, and we're like, man, that Kevin, he's awfully inconvenient.
I felt like that's what they did to me in elementary school when they, Anyway, we'll not get into that right now, but I mean, they physically shot me of it.
Yeah, I know. Me too. It drove me insane. But if God is a society of beings so advanced that they know the human body so well that a dude can be like laying on the ground, he shit and pissed himself, he smells really bad and he ain't looking so good 3.5 days after his death, and can bring that dude back. That is, he can restore the life thing, which we can't even figure out what that is. We call it an emergent property of complexity of proteins and lipids and carbohydrates and stuff, but we don't know what life is. They're saying they know what life is. And that's damned impressive, by the way. You actually can't kill anyone that he couldn't restore. And when the text reads, thou shalt not kill, what it means is you're not as powerful as me. I can restore that life. You effectively did not kill them. Thou shalt not, meaning you will not, as in you cannot. So I know that's a really fringe view, but those kinds of overviews of it, looking at it in the large picture, actually resolves all of these apparent conflicts that Christians are just trying to apologize their way out of. I mean, how long did it take me to explain thou shalt not kill? What was that? A minute?
Well, I think, thou shalt not kill is kind of problematic in of itself, because I don't think you're a vegan, and even then, if you were a vegan, you would still be killing something that we know is alive, whereas like at that time they differentiated consciousness from life, right? And now we have like a whole different linguistic thing going on. It doesn't say thou shalt not kill anything but plants or.
But if it's talking about restoration of life of humans, which is what I just demanded of it, then it's not even talking about plants and animals, just us, the human animal. I mean, where's the promise your dead dog will be restored to heaven? Where's that? It's not there.
Well, and I struggle with that. Why could we have sentient, conscious beings that do not have souls? You know what I mean? What is the necessity in that?
Oh, I apologize for you being Christianated, but the soul is the thing that the soul is the thing that breathes. It respires.
So they have souls. They're just not eternal souls.
Yeah. But there are animals on this planet which are eternal souls. There's the northern Atlantic whale. That's a mammal. That's an eternal soul. The giant clam is not a giant clam. It's a really old clam. Lobsters, if they didn't get shells so thick they can't break out of them, they would be eternal souls. They don't age. And 27 other things. And we know that within the human, because of the Genome Project, we know that within the human is the possibility of negligible aging. That's how they like to say it. They figure the thing's going to die eventually of old age. But if we were better at maintenance in ourselves genetically, which the possibility is there, dude, we should live thousands of years. We really should, but it's like broken right now.
On that note, we're going to take a quick commercial break. One more.
Lockdown Records presents a Hip Hop Christmas. You'll get such classics as Steve's Nuts Roasted on an Open Fire, A Sleigh Ride in My 64, Annie Up Bitch, It's Christmas, and many more.
buy that
I can't
shit,
get this
son.
2 CD set.
I needed a second to digest that. Okay. This sounds like that's like a whole other conversation that we need to have on the nature of souls. And you cited a very specific number, 27, I think, which I've never heard that one explained before. But I do need to save some of my free streaming hours here for the New Year's stream. So maybe we can resume that conversation then, Richard.
Okay.
Because I'm like, I don't have my notepad out, and I'm very much interested in what you're saying. I haven't read through the document you sent me in a while, so I don't know if any of this is gonna be like maybe mentioned in there, or we could read through that.
Well, I'd love to have a conversation with you anytime. And in fact, I'd love to have a conversation with anyone who's honest at any time, really. Of course, I can't stand a liar. If I can't stand something, it's a liar. But I don't remember what document I shared with you because I have more than one to share.
It's been a while ago. Let me see if I can pull it up now. I don't even remember which freaking.
Which a document is not the same thing as a fact or a truth.
No, I mean, when I say that, I mean it's a Google Doc, a copy of a Google Doc that you've been working on.
Well, I have several of those, so I don't know which one we talked about or which one I sent you. You'd have to tell me that.
Sorry, yeah, it's taking me a minute to pull it up, but so my kind of interpretation on the soul is, as far as everything I can tell, I can't really tell how souls are different from minds, other than some people believe that the mind or the soul, if, whichever term you prefer, I kind of use them interchangeably. One can exist beyond the physical death, and the other cannot. Okay. So that's kind of where I land on that.
Here's what I think the Bible claims. Angels observe you and collect all the information, the intangible information, things like personality, memories. They collect you. And then when you're physically restored to heaven, at some point they give it back to you, and you'll be able to recall all of what you were and all your earthly experiences. That's probably a rite of passage at the age of accountability, which is probably about 13 years old.
So do you believe in a thing that's called soul sleep, where you go through a period of time where you're unconscious and then you regain consciousness, kind of?
What the Bible says repeatedly, aside from the idea of soul sleep, which is not literally in the Bible, but gleaned from the text, I am not the God of the dead. The dead know nothing. Those are direct quotes, and good clean ones.
Okay.
So the Christian that says Grandma is looking over me from heaven right now is anti-biblical. The person that says I die and go directly to heaven is anti-biblical. The person that says I'm going to maintain consciousness through death and that's going to be a new experience to me is anti-biblical.
All right. Well, those are some hard claims.
They're cherry picking. I mean, I can show that they're cherry picking, ignoring certain parts of it. Whereas if you say that angels collect Angels study us and collect all the information that is the emergent property Kevin. I'll call it Kevin. Which is not, it's not your flesh and it's not your brain. It's an amalgamate of all your experiences and opinions and personality and all those things. So it's the emergent property self, right? They collect all of that and give it back to you when you're ready again after you've died. Of course, if you live through end times and you ascend body and all, it doesn't have to be restored to you. You never lost it. So that doesn't even have to be done, you know? But of the dead, it will have to be done.
That is very interesting. If anybody ever wants to debate Richard, I think Richard does debates.
I
We could do it here.
I'd love to get in debates. In fact, but I have to warn anyone that debates me, they will lose.
Yes.
I
Right.
mean, objectively.
99.9% of the time, right?
No, every time. They will lose every time if they debate me on religion. They will lose. I don't care who they are.
Do you want to recommend people your channel or anything you're doing in the future or anything like that? Anything you've done recently?
Yeah. In an hour and a half, I'm having a show with on Math Pig's channel with Math Pig, our regular show. Right now, we're working. This series is on the Book of Revelation. We're about 2/3 of the way through. He keeps asking me, when's it going to look like an acid trip? Because I've been told that my whole life, and this doesn't. And I'm like, yeah, well, no kidding. It's not an acid trip. It's just weird language. So, yeah, drop by. And, of course, yes, thank you, Kev. I got a channel, Demolish Doctrine. Go watch something. Comment under the video. Downvote it if you hate it. And in your comment, tell me why I'm crazy. And that would be fine with me.
Excellent. Yes, thank you so much, Richard, for coming by. And definitely check out Math Pig's channel. Always interesting stuff going on over there. I may do a couple of short videos because I just can't stop running my mouth. But between now and New Year's, I'll be pretty much quiet. I'll just be watching y'all. So have a happy holiday. Whatever holiday you celebrate. Merry Christmas, Richard, and whatever other holidays we may celebrate.
Yule. I think
Yule,
Yule was
yes.
yesterday. Yeah, it just happened.
Hanukkah, I think Hanukkah's been going on, right? Because it's
We
several
are
days
in
or something.
Hanukkah presently.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Sweet. Yeah, happy Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, whatever it is. Stay trusty and be well, and don't drink and drive, because I know a lot of people do that, like right now, and just don't do it. It's not good. All right. Thank you very much. And